Today we're going to check out 2003's Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World on 4K Blu-ray. I'm not here to talk about how good or bad this movie is. I'm just going to share some of my thoughts on the audio and video quality. Now let's go over a few tech specs. The movie was shot on film. It was restored and remastered from the film's original elements, so I'm guessing it's got a 4K DI. Runtime is 2 hours, 18 minutes. Aspect ratio is 239:1, and the audio gets a brand new Dolby Atmos mix. Before we take a look at this audio mix and see how active the mix is, if you don't know what the Dolby Atmos Object Viewer is, you can find a link down below in this video's description that tells you all about it, what it does, and where to find it. You can also find a list of all the gear that I use for these 4K reviews down there as well. So in my mind, as far as I can remember for the past 20 some odd years, the opening of this movie had these footsteps that if you had your 5-channel speaker set up correctly and correctly placed, you'd hear the crew members walking above your head. So seeing as we now have speakers above our heads, I knew that they would add those footsteps up top. Unfortunately, they didn't do that. The effects stay firmly placed in the lower channels. Now suppose if your side surrounds are elevated above your ears, then it might sound more convincing, but in my setup, that wasn't the case. And there's actually quite a few scenes that do take place below the ship's deck where you're supposed to hear people walking above you. Sadly, my decades-old dream of this still hasn't come true. That being said, there's still some excellent usage of atmospherics throughout this movie. The best stuff does happen below the deck, where you'll hear the ships creaking and little effects that are pinging through the different speakers, and especially that water hitting the side of the ship's exterior. It's got a very spacious quality to it that sounds like you're inside of a ship, but you're inside your house. There's also this really cool effect at around 1 minute 30 seconds where you can hear the hammocks swinging from the top speakers. The same kind of sound effect happens when the sails drop from the top down at 38 minutes. In this scene, it's a huge rainstorm with wind whipping around the room and water and raindrops immersing you from every direction. The final battle has very distinct gunshots and explosions that pan through the lower channels with debris that's floating through the air. This doesn't have a ton of dynamic objects that move around the room, but it did use most of my channels, especially all 6 top channels for most of the bigger action scenes. As far as bass response, I do recall the Cannons and the Storm having a ton of low frequency extension back in the DVD days. So unless I'm misremembering, this mix doesn't seem to reach much below 50 Hz. I mean, it still hits hard in that region, but I was expecting to be blown away by the cannon fire. There's still decent bass throughout this, but it's definitely not the bass demo that I was back in the day. As far as dialogue, I did find that in some parts it sounded like Russell was kind of talking at a whispering level, so you might find yourself raising the volume at these certain parts. As for the video quality, this was kind of a mixed bag. I'd say it fluctuates from DVD to really good Blu-ray to excellent 4K crispy quality. There's a handful of effects shots that were clearly effects shots, so they did come across a lot softer in these scenes. I wouldn't say it's distracting, but it can be noticeable if you have a large enough screen. Some shots are slightly out of focus and soft, which do look like DVD resolution-wise. This happens with some aerial shots and a few of the darker shots as well, where there's not too much detail and the blacks will look crushed and sometimes muddy. There are darker shots that are well lit by candles and lanterns that can look excellent with noticeable film grain with a ton of detail. The daytime scenes at the Galapagos could pass for a newly shot film today with the amount of resolvable detail on hand. Facial features and all that look fantastic, as well as the landscape and animals in the background. This movie is in Dolby Vision with a max CLL of 986 and a max FALL of 821. It's not blistering in brightness, but the daytime scenes never did leave me wanting for a brighter image, and I didn't notice anything being overblown. It's got a muted, if not dull, color palette, so this won't be something that you whip out to showcase your Dolby Vision's vibrancy. Like I said earlier, it is kind of a mixed bag as far as detail and resolution. However, I am sure that this is probably the best this movie is ever going to look, so I'm going to go with a 7.9 for video. Audio-wise, I thought this new Atmos mix was very immersive and very atmospheric at times. This did win the Oscar for sound editing, but if this did come out today, I don't think it would even be nominated because of the lack of deep, meaningful bass that I was certain was there back on those older releases. It was still a satisfying listen, especially not having seen it for over a decade or more, so I'm kind of leaning on an 8.2 for audio. So what are your thoughts on this new Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World 4K transfer? Have you seen it, and does it live up to your expectations? Leave a comment down below and let me know. Now, if you do want to grab this movie, I will leave some links for it down below in this video's description. As always, guys, thanks for watching. If you want, you can follow us on social media, and if you want to support the channel and get exclusive content or great discounts on audio and video gear, then stop by our Patreon page. Be sure to like this video if you found it useful and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll catch you again in the next video.